Still on This Morning on ITV. And you definitely know that ITV is certainly the best. We take in the first discussion segment on nationalism and you this morning. We're going to be exploring the path to true national independence. And with me to take a look at this topic this morning is Barrister Ahmed Abubakar Tanimu. He is a legal practitioner, a human rights activist, and a socio-political analyst. And in the characteristic of this program, Barrister Ahmed Abubakar, nationalism and you.
It is our collective responsibility to ensure that this country achieve its absolute potentials, where people will be able to live their life freely, where people will be able to realize their dreams, where people will live in an egalitarian society. It's a pleasure to be on your program this morning. Thank you for having me.
That is beautiful. That is beautiful. Well, he has appealed to you there, and we at this end, it is our duty and responsibility to make our country what we want it to be. Concept of independence of a nation. It appears that so many countries in the continent of Africa, the moment the colonial master flags comes down and their own comes up, and they think that is the all about independence. What is your take on this?
Thank you very much for this topic. The genuineness of this topic can be looked at from the angle of, let's put it in context. What is being, when you refer a country as being independent, is simply in the dictionary meaning that is allowed to self-governance. You don't have foreign interference. You are able to do things for the betterment of your citizenry. So if you want to look at it, you look at it from the historical perspective. If you look at our first interface with the Europeans, which resulted into slavery, and it lasted for quite a long number of years, running into almost a century. In that period, the resources of Africans were plundered. As you can see, some of the artifacts that were stolen, like the akoko, are just being returned. So a lot of our mineral resources, our natural resources, and our human resources, most important, were taken out. And from that moment, almost all the African countries have not really, in the context of being free to govern itself, they lack that freedom. You know, towards the 50s, early 40s, down to the 60s, a lot of African countries regained their independence. But the question that me and you should ask is, are these countries, are they truly free? It's even worse off when you look at the francophone speaking countries. Till this moment, some of them have been paying, we don't know what to call it, we are paying debt that they did not take any money from the, rather it's the other way around. The activities, they are not really free. Some of them, their currencies are being controlled by this, what we have now at the moment is new colonialism, a new form of colonialism, whereby the resources of the countries of most African states are being controlled by their colonial masters and other foreign players. They do not allow this country to thrive. The insecurity situation that we have at the moment, a lot of people have attributed it to the role being played by our colonial masters. They have a way of asking the government of the day to do certain things, paramount among which is gay rights. They want freedom for the gay community. They want certain consideration should be paid to certain aspect, liberalization. They want the economy to be open. They want the currency to be devalued. They want the government to focus its attention on other aspects that are not beneficial to the country. And because of the economic situation they created over time. The government is dependent on foreign loans, on foreign aids. So if you ask, are you truly independent? You are not. If your economic activities are tied to the dictates of foreign powers. And as I noted, the level of insecurity that is pervading some of the African countries is a direct reflection of the fact that most of these African countries, they don't have the capacity in terms of really marshalling out their programs, their ideas, and realizing it, because you have a foreign country that is domineering, a foreign country that is dictating the pace of event. And if any country truly wants to be independent, they will come for that country, and they use so many measures. They have the economic means where they cripple the economy. They've now gone a step further where they encourage acts of terrorism. They fund. We've seen it. It is there on the record.
No, is it not possible for a country that actually wants to make her independence worth the while to go around these things by doing some certain things, innovating some certain things that can make them to assert their independence? For example, the role of technology, owning your own technology, ability to do things on your own, ability to create your own viable market and things of that nature.
Very possible. Very possible.
So how do we go about this?
In fact, we are on that trajectory earlier on. May the soul of the former president of Libya rest in peace, Muammar Gaddafi. He had initiated that process where he wants a single currency where Africans can engage in trade without necessarily converting the forex into a dollar before embarking on trade, because it's quite worrying that the entire African country, every state have its own currency. You move to next door neighbor Ghana, Benin, Burkina Faso, Niger, we cannot even trade within ourselves, and that will tell you that something is fundamentally flawed. The West African countries experimented with the idea of having an eco currency, but we saw the role France played, and because of that, the francophone speaking West African countries, they went on their own. When discussions were on top gear, the possibilities are there, the opportunities are there. Thank God for technology, but the question is, are African countries, particularly Nigeria, are we looking inwards? What measures have been taken, pragmatic, very concrete measures have been put in place to ensure that we do this part? We must give kudos to this government. One thing for the will I call it a revolution? No, I will not, because in the agricultural sector, the government have tried to find ways and support local farmers, support entrepreneurs, so that our food will be able to produce rice, will be able to now go back. Because what has been the case before now is that most of these African countries are dependent on imports. We import virtually everything, down to even toothpick. So if we are having that as an economy, it means we are not independent, and the government realizing that, and look at what the burden it can place on the economy. They now started having measures, programs like the Anchor Borrower. They did so many programs, but the truth is that it's just like a tip in an iceberg. We've not really cascaded it down. It has not trickled down. We need to do more. It's not about having the policies, the practicability of the policies. When we talk about giving loans to farmers, are they given to real, genuine farmers? And what is the monitoring mechanism? So the systems are there, the intentions are there, but the actualization is the challenge. For now, we have not really scored a very high percentage in terms of looking inwards and doing things from within.
So putting it succinctly, what are the indicators you would like to see to say Nigeria is leading the front of Africa towards genuine independence?
Firstly, we must talk about democracy. We must enshrine democratic ideals. I'm surprised that the president, for whatever reason, will want to even create room for people to start suspecting. Why is he not assenting to the recently amended electoral bill, and I will use this opportunity to call on the National Assembly. As a matter of fact, they have that power. Nigerians have entrusted them. They are the hope for the masses. We must be able to transit in a very peaceful manner. Elections should be able to reflect the yearnings and aspirations of the common masses. If the politicians realize that any election will be based on merit, will be based on what the generality of the people yearn for, I think things will start getting things right. But at the moment, that's not the case in Nigeria. That's not the case in most African countries. It is a sad narrative to know that in some African countries we are having military incursion back into politics. We've seen it in Mali, we've seen it in Guinea,
even Sudan.
It's just frightening. So I see that African continent is going back to the era of where you have so many coup d'etats and military. We don't want that. So firstly, democratic ideas must be strengthened. Then you now go to the issue of fairness and justice. Without justice, no society will move. And for us to achieve that, the court system needs to be, and the judiciary needs to be improved on. People needs to now be confident that if they get to court, if their rights are infringed upon, they will get remedy. Then the most important is the economy. Without economy, every other thing just is not going to be achievable. The government needs to look inwards. We need to now come back. Before now, we have granite pyramid, we have the cocoa plantation, we have export in palm kernel and oil. So we should not be reliant in a monolithic economy where we rely and we depend solely on crude oil. And we've seen the impact, the negative impact. Anytime there's plummeting of when the price is plummeting, and you see that the economy will just will result into more borrowing, and the more you keep borrowing, the more you are exposing or you are like mortgaging the future of your children. You are like going back to the colonialists who come and colonize me once again. If we get the economic right, the economic indices and the fundamentals, whereby we have commercial banks, we have regulators, we have insurance service providers, everybody should be on that, so that the economy will have a very strong economy. The economy will now create the enabling environment where businesses will thrive. If you go to any bank, I've privileged to work in banks, at the moment the average rate for accessing the facilities, we are talking about 24% for household consumables. We are talking about up to even 30% in some cases. So how do you think businesses will thrive? Businesses will not thrive. And if you look at the conditionalities, I was shocked when I heard that some banks, they even restrict the collateral they collect to maybe Abuja, Lagos and Port Harcourt. That shouldn't be the case. The government should take deliberate steps whereby properties should be given certificate of occupancies. In Abuja here, even the area councils, you'll be shocked. A lot of properties, they don't have C of O, and if you don't have a certificate of occupancy, it means you cannot even access facilities. And the banks as well, they made the condition for accessing facilities so difficult and cumbersome. You will be asked to bring so many things, and a lot of people will now be distracted, they will not be motivated, and you need these resources for you to be able to embark in any meaningful business venture. So the government now can come in form of guarantee.
Over time, African countries, Nigeria not exempted, sure, has attached so much value to developmental aids. Are these developmental aids really developing us? Are they what we need?
We don't need that at the moment, because in the real context they are underdeveloping in the sense that we have not, as you can see at the moment, we have resorted into more of tokenism, whereby the government in a population of 200 million and more
plus, yes,
plus you see intervention for maybe 1 million, for 2 million. It doesn't really it has not really trickled down. What we need is a kind of massive intervention. The government should ensure that there's paucity of there's spending in terms of deliberate action. You are creating, if you have contractors that have not been paid them. If you have business proposal from individuals, private citizens. They want to develop maybe like Papi, you have an investor, create that enabling environment. Because if you do that, you are creating employment opportunity, you are empowering your citizen, and that will now create that air that, okay, we have independence because the economy is viral. Then you talked about technology earlier on, and I was listing those key areas. Technology is one of it. We have to look inward. We have a lot of bright young Nigerians that are making waves abroad. Why can't we get them back into the country? You can only do that if the environment is conducive. But as we have it today, insecurity has taken the better part of the country. People can no longer move freely. People are scared. I don't know if you have traveled far and wide, but if you go around the country, a lot of farmers no longer go to farms. If you go to places like Jigawa, Niger, Kaduna, Zamfara, those people that are engaged in these agricultural activities, some of them have stopped. Some of them had to pay bandits, terrorists. They have to pay them to allow them to even engage in their means of livelihood. So if you are not getting security challenges, if you are not nipping it at the bud, all other consideration will just be a waste of time. So all these factors, they are intertwined, they are interwoven. The government needs to get all its acts right for this country to be truly be perceived as independent. But it's not enough. If you look at most of these countries during after getting their independence, they come up with so many kind of fantastic cliche, and at the end of it all, it doesn't really portend, it doesn't really show that they are independent. Most countries, they are republican, they are democratic, but in the real sense, on ground, what you have on ground is quite to the contrary.
Many people have said that within this country, we have talents among our youths. We have seen youths that produce, what do you call it, generator that is running on water.
Sure.
We have seen youths that produce motorbike. Sure. We have seen youths that even produce car.
Drones.
We have seen youths that produce drone and helicopter and things of that nature.
Sure.
But there seems not to be a deliberate attempt from government to converge these youths and explore them for the technological advancement of the country.
Absolutely.
Your take?
Absolutely, I agree with you. You ask yourself, the way the country is as big as it is, we should have like 6 or more technological hubs across the geopolitical zone. And if you can even cascade it down to the lower level, we should have it in every local government. It should be a deliberate attempt that, okay, the enabling environment, one of the major challenges that we're having is the issue of power. A lot of youths cannot even do anything because they have to now start getting fuel at very exorbitant rate. Then if the government can now even deliberately, if you are reaching an agreement with the discos and generating various companies that are into power sector, you can make it as part of their corporate social responsibility that yes, we have a hub in Abuja, maybe in Pape, we have another hub in Lagos, we have a hub in Maiduguri, we have a hub in Enugu, we have a hub in Port Harcourt. The electricity for that hub should be part of your corporate social responsibility. Then you now look at big tech company, maybe those in the telecom sector, MTN, Nine Mobile and the rest. They should be able to provide free internet access to that particular hub so that it will form part of their corporate social responsibility. The government could only incentivize that by maybe giving them some tax relief. What are they seeking to achieve? You are creating the enabling environment. You have taken off the burden of maybe a place for conducting business because you have created a big hub. You have taken the challenge of procuring generators and fueling for the power to run because the Gencos and the Discos have equally contributed in terms of deliberate action of corporate social responsibility. Then you can now invite the technological hub so that those people that have various ideas, they can now, that hub will now serve as an incubator whereby various ideas will be harnessed, the enabling environment is there, the platform is there, then the government should now equally patronize those things that are being produced. As you can see, I'm putting on a locally made ankle, and it's very fine and it's very cheap. if we now patronize, my dressing completely is Nigerian made. Individuals can produce quality product, but they need the support so that they could get quality material, and some of these materials can be sourced locally, but because the way they go about processing it, that's where the issue of quality now comes in. The government can take deliberate action, take deliberate steps. By the time they put in measures and they encourage both, and the government cannot do it alone. That's the mistake we've always made in the past. In an economy of in a population of 200 million, and those that are directly employed by the government are less than 10%. So it means the 90% are out of government in a way. They are private sector driven. So the economy must be private sector driven. If for you to achieve that, it's not about having a bloated civil service. You must have an efficient civil service. The civil servant must realize that they are business enablers. They are not doing any citizen any favor by doing what they are being paid for, and it should be a cautious effort through training, through orientation, through having kind of synergy between the private sector and the public sector. That will only work if the public sector are doing what they are supposed to be doing. But if you go to some parastatals agencies, they want to take bribe before they do, they want to take bribe before they move the file, the basic things that they are supposed to do, they are not doing, and it has a correlating effect on the private sector. So we, the government, the citizens, all must put their hands on deck so that things can really change for the country.
Many people have said that a nation that will be worthy of her independence should aspire to produce a minimum of 85% of her national needs. Do you share this view?
Absolutely. And in our own context, we are taking it from the other way. We are not producing basically enough to meet the demand. You talk about rice production, and so much noise has been made about it. The local rice that you used to know at the moment is almost as expensive as those that are being imported, and in fact some argue that the foreign rice are equally cheaper in terms of if you look at the cost implication of what you spend to produce the local rice, and it trickle down beans, every other beans, even the basic commodities, food security, things that you even the consumables. If you go to the market at the moment, I can assure you with 100,000 and you walk into an average supermarket, when you are leaving, nothing will be left, and you look at the basket, you are really not even gotten enough stocks to really last you for a month. And that is terrifying, because when you have issue of hunger, you have issue that you are not producing things that you need, then your people naturally will suffer for it. For you to be independent, you should be self-reliant. You should be able to now reduce on imports. If we are in a global economy, nobody is preventing goods, foreign goods from coming in. But what are we exchanging in returns? So if the balance of trade is tilted towards foreigners getting the better,
are you aware that even with the COVID-19 pandemic, Africans are being discriminated against? Absolutely. In the way of the availability of vaccines and the rest of it? Recently, the President, Muhammadu Buhari, GCFR, called on the university communities to begin to research in order to build our own, what do you call it, vaccines, and in order to produce our own vaccines.
Sure.
I vividly remembered that at the peak of this pandemic, the Iranian nation decided we are not going to import from US so that they will not send us that which will kill us. Instead, we will produce our own. And they produce their own.
Absolutely.
They produce their own vaccine. Cuba have produced their own vaccine, which is even more effective and things of that nature. Why is it that no African country have produced vaccine?
It's a sad narrative. I just want to equally confirm what you have said. If you recall, recently the minister admitted about the issue of expired vaccines. So it shows to the level that, and that creates distrust within the citizens, that if a foreign aid is coming as a vaccine and you are now giving us expired vaccine, so it means a lot of people that have some kind of ill feeling towards the vaccination exercise, they now have reason to be justified that yes, you are giving us an unwholesome product that we don't know the consequences. A lot of people are taking it, but they don't know the consequences. So we have to look inwards. We have a lot of talent. We have, if even the vaccine that one of the vaccines that was developed by a Nigerian, is part of the team. So we have doctors, we have virologists, we have so many people that have the capacity, but because the enabling environment is not there, for developing a vaccine or any medication, there's what we call trials. For those in the medical parlance, they will understand this better. It takes a lot of resources because a lot of people will be they will be asked
recently, President Muhammadu Buhari GCFR traveled to Lagos to commission a naval ship built by Nigeria, and it is said to be the third one produced by Nigeria, a naval ship. Now, taking that into consideration, is our ability not to have advanced technological capability a matter of inability, or it is a matter of misplacement of priorities?
I'll go with the latter, misplacement of priority. I want to celebrate the naval ship that was constructed, but I will tell you in all honesty, it's not built in Nigeria, it's assembled in Nigeria. You get components and you assemble. Most of these local manufacturers that we celebrate that they've produced cars, they've produced tractors, they've produced machines, they are all assembling those components until the government prioritized the Ajaokuta steel complex. I went there last and I shed tears because you've seen abandoned project. This is a gold mine. If you want to produce car, you want to produce equipment, you want to produce naval ship, you need steel, you need metals, and we have the resources there in Nigeria. So why can't the government, if the government at the time, this current government at the time of coming on board and say, okay, part of the things that we want to do, Ajaokuta must be functional before the expiration of the tenure of this government. If they could have achieved that, my brother, I can assure you the level of technological advancement that we have, because the brains are there, the mental capacities are there, but now the resources are not there. We have to rely on importation of steel metals for them to be able to construct. We have to, so it still goes back to the same issue of importation. It still go back to the same issue of depending on the foreign countries, and with that you lose your independence. So I would tell the line of the government have not really gotten its priority right. We can just identify three major issues and say, okay, Ajaokuta Steel Complex, we need it to be functional because it produces steel, metals, and that will have a ripple effect on the economy. We want to solve the issue of power, bring everybody back on deck. Okay, we need a lot of power. The current capacity that we are celebrating, there's nothing to celebrate about. Make a comparison to smaller countries like South Africa. We are talking of 40,000 gigabytes and megawatts of power, and we are dangling between 2,000 max, maybe 5,000, and there's nothing to celebrate about it. The government should make it a deliberate. Mistakes were made in the past, maybe in the manner and procedures of the privatization. Anything that has been written, you can unwrite it by doing what is right, and the time to do what is right is always right. You can do it now. The government can call them, renew some of these contracts, get the people talk about audio project, audio program. When you make promises and everybody knows that time is not on your part, then people will tend to be circumspect and be suspicious that there's really nothing on ground to show that those promises, those commitments, those things that a lot of us believe that if properly done will change this country radically.
Very well. We are exploring the pathway to true national independence. You have talked about Ajaokuta.
Sure.
We ought to even have, as a nation of 200 million people, we ought to even have about 2 to 3 statues of Ajaokuta complex instilled. Absolutely. If we are ready for technology.
Absolutely.
As a nation exploring the pathway to independence, we ought to have more than 10 refineries.
Absolutely.
To the extent of exporting refined fuel, and things of that
Absolutely.
nature,
Absolutely.
and the rest of it. As you mentioned it earlier also, that technological hubs.
Sure.
I am very sure, and many people have said it, that if you assemble some Nigerian talents, identified talents, and you put them in a kind of a
Incubator.
technological village,
Sure.
and you task them, finance them, create an enabling environment. If you said they should produce television, they should produce this and the rest of it, before you know it, under 6 months, they will produce all these things.
Absolutely.
And
Absolutely.
why are we not treading that path?
We are not
Is
treading-
it that we don't understand the true nature of independence?
You ask yourself, who are our leaders? When you have a leader that his priority is about having physical structure, he believes that by the time he has built a very magnificent building, that will solve the entire problem of the country. That's not true. You need to have visionary leaders, leaders that can look at and make projection for the country that, okay, in 20 years time, we want to be self-reliant in the issue of maybe road construction. I'm not an engineer, but I can assure you, given the necessary materials, I'll be able to construct some durable roads that will last for more than a century. But go to most places in Nigeria, as they are building the roads, maybe 3 to 4 years down the line, the roads are bad. You go, you see potholes everywhere. These are little things that if you get some youths, maybe in a local government, and entrust them with the responsibility of taking care of that road, if they notice anything, they call the attention of the concerned agencies, and they will now come and do what they need to do. The priority is not there. You have leaders that are not visionary. You have leaders that some are not, they don't really share these ideas. So we need to equally have a roundtable discussion within ourselves, the leaders. Where do we hope to be in the next 5 years? Where do we strive to be in the next 10 years? What are the measures? Before now, you used to have developmental plan, you have agendas. Of late, we don't even hear that anymore, and that is worrying, because at the level things are going on in the country at the moment, if the government did not take deliberate steps. So now the issue of the democratic ideas I talked about, the issue of enabling the people, empowering the people to have credible leaders, to have visionary leaders. Me and you cannot contest an election and win, because we might lack the resources, the enabling environment, the system and structures are not there. Our election truly a reflection of the yearning and aspirations of the common Nigerian. If people cannot put in leaders that share the same sentiment, ideas of wanting this country to grow, then you now have mediocres in various places. But you are telling mediocre, okay, you need to do technological hub, you need to create incentive. He's look at it from a different perspective. What is in for him? Immediate. He wants his immediate gain. His cut, the way they call it. He wants it as soon as possible.
Thank you very much. Barrister Ahmed Abubakar Taminu is the one we have been talking with on this issue of exploring the pathway to genuine and true independence, on nationalism and you. It's been wonderful having you here. And honestly, we can keep going on, because I am very passionate about this. We should be worthy of our independence by putting the right structures in place. Africans, and Nigeria especially, must earn the respect of the world by going the path of technology, owning our own technology, an ability to stand on our own feet. We must be able to get our refineries to work. At Jalkuta, we get it to work and build more of it. Those are the paths to go in exploring the pathway to true national independence. Don't change the channel. We are still on This Morning on ITV.